ka man ngayon, pinala ng pagkakataon, nag-iisang humarap sa hamon, at hindi uurong. Kahit nasa malayo ka, saan mang panig ng daigdig, tinig mo'y makakarating. Pakikinggan ang iyong hiling, ang Tinig Pinoy, karamay mo. Kahit saang dako ng mundo, isang mithiin, isang hangarin, marinig ang tinig natin. Ugali natin kinagisnan, mula nooy nagtutulungan. Pilipino ay nagkakaisa, sa ibang bansa ay magkakasama. Isigaw sa buong mundo, nang marinig ang tinig mo. Tinig natin ay pagsasamahin, tagumpay ay magkakamit. Ang Tinig Pinoy, karamay mo. Kahit saang dako ng mundo, isang mithiin, isang hangarin, marinig ang tinig natin. Ugali nating kinagisnan, mula nooy nagtutulungan. Pilipino ay nagkakaisa, sa ibang bansa ay magkakasama. Isigaw sa buong mundo, nang marinig ang tinig mo. Tinig natin ay pagsasamahin, tagumpay ay magkakamit. Ang Tinig Pinoy, karamay mo. Kahit saang dako ng mundo, isang mithiin, isang hangarin, marinig ang tinig natin. Tinig Pinoy, Tinig Pinoy, Tinig Pinoy, Tinig Pinoy.
Isang mapagpalang umaga, gabi po sa inyo lahat, mga kaibigan na nakikinig at nanonood ngayon dito sa Tinig Pinoy Radio Special Edition. Good evening, Philippines. Good morning, Canada. Good morning, Regina Sosing.
Magandang gabi po, Kuya Dan. Magandang umaga at sa mga katinig natin lahat. Glad to be here at isang napakamahalagang pag-uusapan po natin ngayon, Kuya Dan.
Indeed. We're excited dahil kasama po natin ngayon sa ating palatuntunan ang big boss ng OWWA. Oops, nawala po siya sa screen. Okay, I hope he's not having any problems. There you go. Isang karangalan po na makasama natin ngayon dito sa Tinig Pinoy Radio Special Edition, si Mr. Hans Cacdac. Siya po ang Administrator of the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration or OWWA. Magandang gabi po sa inyo, Admin Hans.
Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat at sa inyong mga tagapakinig, tagapanood. Magandang gabi po sa inyo.
Ayan. Salamat po sa pagpapaunlak.
Magandang araw dyan sa inyo.
Magandang araw po dito sa amin. Especially ngayon po, napakaganda ng araw talaga. It's not really that cold anymore here in Ontario, Canada.
Ayos.
Salamat po. Kasama po natin, Admin Hans, ang aking partner, ang aming program director sa Tinig Pinoy Radio. This is Regina Sosing.
Hi, Miss Regina.
Hello
Magandang
po.
araw sa inyo.
Magandang gabi po. Si Admin Hans po, nakita ko na kayo sa interview with Tita Lou Medina at siya po ay Kuya Dan sa pinaka hardworking na official natin sa Pilipinas. At siya po ay may tuturing hero ng mga OFW dahil nandiyan po siya para tumulong sa mga OFW natin all the time. Salamat po, Admin Hans.
Salamat po. Kung yan po ay nanggagaling sa inyo, mahal nating mga OFW leaders dyan sa Canada. Malaking karangalan po na nakakataba ng puso na madinig po yan. Pero Ito naman po ay sa kadahilanan na kayo'y talagang karapat-dapat na paglingkuran. At marami pa hong kailangang ma-improve sa mga serbisyo, kalakaran, patakaran. Yun naman po ang silbi ng ating pakikipag-ugnayan kasi patuloy lang ang ating pag-improve ng ating areas of service and yung mga programs natin for OFWs.
Maraming salamat po. Sana po lahat ng mga nanunungkulan sa ating pamahalaan ay katulad ng inyong prinsipyo. Kaya hindi nakapagtataka na sinasabi nilang si Admin Hans daw ang pinaka-approachable na opisyal ng DOLE. Konting paglilinaw lang po, Admin Hans. Ano po ang OWWA essentially? Ano pagkakaiba halimbawa nito sa POEA that I understand once upon a time you headed?
Opo, ang OWWA is an attached agency of the
Okay.
DOLE. We are essentially a two-pronged, in other words, two double mandated institution under the OWWA Charter of 2016. Una, we manage the Welfare Fund. It's a private trust fund owned by OFWs such as yourselves.
Mhm.
Yung 18.3 billion trust fund na pinangangalagaan po natin. At pangalawa, mula sa trust fund na ito, nagpapatakbo tayo ng mga programa at serbisyo na aprobado ng ating Board of Trustees, chaired by the Secretary of Labor, Secretary Silvestre Bello III.
Opo.
And in so far as the POE is concerned, sister agency po natin. Si Admin Olalia at ang POEA family. Essentially, ang kaibahan, simple lang, kung sisimplihan ko lang, ang POEA, regulatory body po yan sa area ng recruitment, employment, deployment ng mga OFWs. So, yung area niya, yung essentially regulation ng recruitment,
Okay.
nasa jurisdiction niya yung disiplina ng mga license, paglilisensya at pagdisiplina ng mga licensed recruitment agencies. Ang OWWA, essentially, welfare institution.
Welfare.
So, meaning, ang OFW ay na-recruit na proseso na sa POEA, na pamiyembro na sa OWWA, na-deploy na.
Mhm.
At kung merong tulong along the welfare areas or lines na kailangan nating ibigay sa ating mga mahal na OFWs at pati mga OFW families, dyan pumapasok ang OWWA. Tayo rin ay, aside from giving welfare services on-site, meron tayong mga social benefit programs. Yan,
Opo.
integration, livelihood, scholarship, medical assistance, calamity assistance, death and disability. And then, yung kasalukuyang nangyayari ngayon, yung emergency services natin, gawa ng pandemya, COVID-19 pandemic, kung saan tayo ang nangangasiwa ng food, transport, and hotel quarantine services sa mga nanunumbalik na OFW sa ating mahal na bayan.
Maganda po at nabanggit kagad ninyo yung tungkol sa mga bumabalik na mga kababayan nating nagtatrabaho abroad. At isa sila sa mga tinutugunan ninyo mga pangangailangan. Nung isang araw po nanonood ako nung interview, nung meeting ni President Duterte with his cabinet. At si Secretary Bello po ay nagmungkahi na igsian daw po ang quarantine period ng mga repatriated OFWs. Dahil apparently, yung cost ng quarantine is proving to be too much. And that also, sinabi din niya yung dahilan na yung masyadong matagal na kwarantina ay nangangahulugan na hindi pa na-enjoy nung mga bagong dating yung company ng kanilang mga pamilya. Ano po masasabi niyo tungkol dyan, Admin Hans?
Oo. Yung naman kay Secretary Bello ay kumbagay paglalatag nung issue na kung saan kinaharap din namin sa pang-araw-araw sa DOLE OWWA. Kasi kung di nyo na itatanong, yun nga, food, transport, hotel accommodation ng mga returning OFWs on quarantine, kami yung direktang nakikipag-ugnayan. Literally, mga frontliners natin sa DOLE OWWA, nakikihalubilo, nakikipagkaibigan, naglilingkod sa mga returning OFWs, quarantine OFWs, and OFWs departing for home regions through OWWA chartered buses or planes. So that's mga 10 to 15,000 every day, literally, na nakakahalubilo ng mga tao natin sa DOLE OWWA, frontliners natin. So naturally, nakakadinig tayo ng feedback sa OFWs at nararamdaman OFWs during quarantine. So yung kay Sec Bello, pinanggagalingan ni Sec, yung konteksto na yan. So una, yun nga, yung nabanggit nyo, yung sentimiento ng ilang OFWs na baka naman kailangan ripasuhin ang proseso. Una, yung nga yung pinoint out ni Sec doon sa meeting, ang positivity rate ng nanunumbalik is mga 1.5 to 2% lang eh. Ibig sabihin, out of 100 OFWs who return to our country, 2 lang ang nagpa-positive sa COVID out of 100. No? And sabi ni Sec, makakailangan repasuhin. Added to that, of course, yung nabanggit ninyo, sir, yung budget. Kasi before the years began, ang konteksto, 1 to 3 days lang ang OFW sa hotel quarantine. Pagdating sa airport, sinaswab sila ng Coast Guard, pinaprocess ng Red Cross yung specimen, and paglabas ng negative results, within 1 to 3 days, uwi. No? Dinadala na namin sa home region or LGU. But ngayon, dahil sa new COVID variant, nag-iingat ng husto ang IATF with good reason. Sabi ng IATF, imbis na swabbing at the airport, ang swabbing on the 6th day of quarantine. And the results of that swab test will come out in 24-48 hours. So aabot ng 7 to 9 days. From 1 to 3 days, 7 to 9 days ang nilalagi sa hotel quarantine. At pinoint out din ni Sec Bello na marami sa mga umuuwi yung mga emergency cases na matayan ng mahal sa buhay o may mahal sa buhay na agaw buhay sa ospital na kailangan puntahan kaagad. So yun lang naman ang kay Sec, mapag-usapan. Wala naman sigurong sa mga idudulot yung mapag-usapan, madinig muli ang mga eksperto at napaunlakan ni Pangulo. No? Sabi ni Pangulo, sige, pakinggan natin. In the name of public discourse, madinig ng taong bayan. So yun, napakinggan yung mga dalubhasa at ang kapasyahan ni Pangulo na ginagalang natin is wag munang galawin yung current protocols. And as for the budget, ay nagsalita na rin naman si Spokes Harry Roque noong isang araw na si Sec Wendell Abisado ng DBM mismo ang nagsabi na rin na tutulungan niya tayo sa budget. Kasi nga yung budget ng 6.2 billion at the beginning of the year, ang konteksto nun 1 to 3 days lang sa hotel. Kaso 7 to 9 days ngayon ang linalagi sa hotel.
Malaking kaibahan. Yeah, malaking kaibahan po yan.
Yes,
siyempre, the resources are getting thinner and thinner.
Triple, hindi nga quadruple pa di ba?
That's right.
Yes. So, yun yung konteksto nung kay Sec. Maliwanag na sa mga dalubhasa na kinakailangan talaga kahit na bakunahan sa abroad, kinakailangan talaga na magdaan sa 6-day quarantine for swab testing and then uwi na kapag negative.
I see. Regina, you have a question?
Kuya Dan, nawala lahat ng katanungan kung pagkadami-dami dahil po napakalinaw ni Admin Hans magbigay ng paliwanag.
Pasensya na, haba na sagot ko.
No, hindi po. Napakaliwanag po ng inyong pagkakasabi sa amin. Kaya naiintindihan ko po, kaya naglaho lahat ng mga katanungan ko kasi nasagot niyo na po. Para po doon sa mga, alam po natin ng konteksto na ito ay para sa mga umuuwi dahil kailangan na nilang umuwi or umuuwi dahil kailangan makasama ang mahal sa buhay na nasa emergency, for example. Para malinaw lamang po, Admin Hans, para sa mga nakikinig at nanonood natin lahat, na hindi lang po nagbabakasyon itong mga OFW natin na umuuwi. So pwede niyo pong sabihin sa amin na ano pa po yung mga sitwasyon kung bakit may mga OFW tayo na umuuwi na 10 to 15,000 at least a day. Ang dami-dami.
By the way, yung 10 to 15,000, hindi yun yung sabay-sabay na dumadating sa NAIA. So yung 10 to 15,000, mga 2 to 3,000 doon, yung kadarating pa lang. And then meron kang mga 7 to 8,000 na lumalagi sa quarantine. And then meron kang mga 2,000 na inuuwi natin sa probinsya. Yun yung suma total ng inaalagaan natin everyday. Ang isa pang dahilan is quite simply, yung pag-uwi ay nagbabakasyon. Kahit hindi emergency case, ay nagbabakasyon yung ating mga mahal na OFWs. For me, napakahalaga nung pagbakasyonin ng OFWs. Hindi lang yan simpleng nagpapasarap o walang ginagawa, no? Kasi yung pagbabakasyon ng isang OFW, that addresses yung tinatawag na social cost of migration.
Of course.
Yung mahagkan ng isang batang munti ang kanyang OFW na ina o ama ng kahit na 10 hanggang 14 na araw,
Mhm.
ay, my goodness, ako, naging anak ako ng OFW, mapapawi, no? Yung lungkot, kahit pansamantala, yung agam-agam, yung takot, yung pangamba ng bata, yung mga anak ng OFWs, addressing the social cost of migration, mapapangaralan ang mga bata, makikita ng mga bata na buo ang pamilya nila, may pag-asa, no? Magkakaroon ng pag-asa at hindi malilihis ng landas ang mga anak ng OFWs. Nako, hindi ko matatawaran kahit kailan ang pagbabakasyon ng isang OFW. Hindi lang ho yan nagbabakasyon para magpariwara, kundi maniwala pero hindi. Alam niyo ito, hindi ko na kailangan paliwanag sa inyo. Meron pa ring obligasyon na ginagampanan ng OFW na nagbabakasyon.
Naiyak ako dyan sa pagkakasabi mo, Admin Hans. Si Kuya Dan, kaya kailangan talaga marinig natin ang mga to para mas maliwanag po para sa atin. Hindi lamang po sa amin na mga nakikinig. Katulad din po sa mga specialist natin. Kasi iniisip lang nila yung disease stopping the disease is all they're thinking po, Admin Hans. Not the other implications of why OFW is going
Yes,
through.
yes. Siyempre kami ni Sec Bello, feel namin, ano, yun nga, very low positivity rate. They come back, the OFWs come back to rejoin their families and somehow make up for lost time. So kailangan repasuhin yung proseso, give them more time with their families, but alam nyo sa batas, public interest, public health, isa yan sa nasa tuktok yan.
Right.
Public health.
Opo.
Teka, hindi ko makita sa camera. Public health. Sabi nga ng mga doktor, kung hindi tayo in good health, wala tayong good life na pinag-uusapan. Kaya't sige, bow tayo dyan. Bow tayo. Kung sinabi ng mga dalubhasa, sige, Admin Cacdac, magkakasakit yung OFWs mo. Pag hindi mo kami pinakinggan, okay. Bow tayo sa kanilang mga advice. So, ganun muna. Doon muna tayo sa sitwasyon na ganun. Pakinggan natin yung science na tinatawag.
Opo. So lumalabas at this point na wala pang desisyon doon sa request ni Secretary Bello. Ngayon po, para sa kapakanan ng mga kababayan nating nagtatrabaho at nais magbakasyon, alam ko po na marami, halimbawa sa mga membro ng TINIG Pinoy Radio, na nag-iisip silang magbakasyon pero natatakot sila, lalo na nung lumabas yung balita na dwindling na yung resources ng OWWA and therefore hindi na maibibigay yung accommodation na ibinibigay doon sa mga nakapagbakasyon na nung dati. So sinabi po nyo kanina na si Mr. Abisado ng BBM ay nag-commit na dadagdagan o bibigyan kayo ng karagdagang budget. So dapat na po bang isipin ngayon at tanuhin uli ng mga nag-defer ng kanilang plan to go on vacation sa Pilipinas to proceed because they are missing their families?
Actually, tama kayo sir, no? Maybe it was maybe almost 2 months ago, we joined the DFA. Even sa DFA kasi sina Sec Locsin nanawagan din na wag mo nang umuwi. Kung mapapagpaliban niya, mahalaga yon. Kung mapapagpaliban pa ang travel. Kung may ticket na o may approved leave na, may expiring work visa, ay ituloy na ho ang pagpapauwi. Pero yun nga, kahapon, nung isang araw, reiterate ko uli yung payo na wag mo nang umuwi kasi hindi lamang sa sitwasyon ng pag-quarantina o yung budget kasi yung pangkalusugan na rin. Nasa MECQ tayo ngayon dito, which is the second most strict, second strictest form of lockdown dito sa atin. Hanggang April 30, malapit na rin naman matapos. So, antayin na lang muna natin yung decision ng IATF whether to extend or to lower the lockdown level. And then we can start thinking about going back to our beloved country. Ganun muna. I think it's just the kind of advice that our OFWs need to know. Kasi kung di nyo na tatanong, pagka dumating dito yung OFWs at nagugulat sila na halimbawa napakahigpit pala nung quarantine, 6 days, etc. Nagagalit din sila sa mga tao natin on the ground, sinasabihan, ganito pala dito, ba't di nyo sinabi sa amin? Ganun ba?
Right.
So, yun na, pinangungunahan na rin natin sila na ganito ang sitwasyon. Parang ano yan, parang waving the white flag na, ganito lang ganito lang ang pupuntahan ninyo para lang malaman ninyo na pinapayuhan namin kayo. But of course, the final decision is still with our dear OFW.
Right.
They are managing expectations.
Yeah, kaya nga po minabuti namin na
Exactly. Managing expectations.
That's it.
Exactly.
Kaya nga po minabuti namin na makausap kayo para nang sa ganon ay mabigyang linaw ang agam-agam ng marami sa ating mga kababayang nag-iisip na uuwi or hindi uuwi. So, pakinggan po natin, o ulitin natin sinabi ni Admin Hans. Sa kasalukuyan po, hindi naman sinasabing huwag ninyong planuhing umuwi ng Pilipinas, pero bigyan muna ninyo ng tamang pagkakataon dahil yung pong kalakaran sa Pilipinas, yung MECQ, ay in place pa rin. Patapos naman po yan, hanggang Abril 30 na lang po yan. So, konting araw na lang ng paghihintay. Nakapaghintay na rin lang tayo ng matagal-tagal na panahon, medyo dagdagan natin yung panahong paghihintay. Parang sa ganun, makabawi naman ang ating bansa, lalo na ang OWWA, na siyang porsigidong tumatangkilik sa mga nag-uuwi ang mga kababayan natin.
Admin Hans, nais ko lang pong mabanggit ulit at sana'y maikwento nyo sa amin. May mga magagandang programa po kayo katulad po ng balik negosyo para sa mga OFW natin na umuuwi. Pwede nyo po kaming kwentuhan tungkol dyan?
Oo. Unang-una yung ating livelihood programs with respect to yung individual for returning distressed workers, individual grants for startups, 20,000 pesos. Grant yun, bigay. Basta meron syempreng seminar ng entrepreneurship, pagdadaanan, may site inspection, may business plan na susumite. Pero ang gusto ko i-promote sana yung tinatawag na Tulong Puso program, yung group livelihood program natin. Para sa mga nanunumbalik, lalo na OFWs, na gusto makapagsimula ng negosyo, basta't makapag-organize sila as a group. Bakit ko ine-emphasize to? Kasi sa karanasan ng OWWA, mas may higher degree of success kapag nag-group ang OFWs kesa sa nag-iisa. So, itong naman ay grant din, 150,000 to 1 million pesos, depende sa laki ng negosyo. So, ang requirements ay pinaka-basic dyan, dapat organisado sila either as a workers association registered with the DOLE, as a corporation registered under the Securities and Exchange Commission, or as a cooperative under the Cooperative Development Authority. And then may seminar din yan, meron ding site inspection and business plan to be submitted. The requirements are in OWWA.gov.ph. OWWA.gov.ph. Palalaman nyo, electronic portal ang submission dito, online. Ang submission ng application. And then I'll bring in the third one, which is a loan window naman, hindi ito grant. Yung ating entrepreneurship development loan program in partnership with the Land Bank. Ito may collateral requirement. 7.5% fixed interest yan per annum. Hindi nag-fluctuate yung interest rate. Hindi nagko-compound. And ito may collateral requirement. But sa tingin ko, binabanggit ko to kasi Canada kayo. So based on our studies, the chances are higher na merong pang-collateral mga OFW sa Canada. So ito yung EDLP in partnership with Land Bank. So nandoon din sa OWWA.gov.ph ang process and ang requirements.
Yung grupo
pwede
po,
ko idagdag, scholarship. Ma'am, dagdag ko lang yung scholarship. Kasi gusto ko parating isingit yung scholarship kahit na hindi ito pangkabuhayan, pero meron din tayong scholarship programs for collegiate level dependents ng OFWs. So nandun din sa OWWA.gov.ph ang requirements.
Galing po Admin Hans, at kami po taus-pusong nagpapasalamat. Kung kayo po ay, alam ko napapagod din kayo minsan, isipin nyo lamang po Admin Hans na napakadami nyo pong natutulungan. At sana po pagpalain po kayo ng kung may kapal. At huwag po sana kayong mapagod. Pero rest din po kayo minsan, Pat Admin Hans. Salamat po.
Yeah. Maraming salamat po. Yeah. So, isa pong karangalan na makasama namin kayo. Unfortunately, time is not our friend today. Meron po tayong guest at the half hour. At sa punto pong ito, hayaan po ninyo magpasalamat kaming muli on behalf of our memberships and our listeners. Sana po ay pagbigyan nyo kami sa susunod pang mga request namin. Para sa ganon, mas mapag-usapan natin halimbawa yung tungkol doon sa plano na magbe-benefit yung mga gustong magsiuwi at merong konting perang i-invest sa mga programang isinisimulan ng OWWA.
Yes. Ang suggestion ko, meron kasi mga webinar facilities kami.
Opo.
Si DA Mocha Uso ng in-charge dyan and the National Reintegration Center for OFWs. Financial literacy, seminar on the livelihood programs and scholarship programs. Magpa-webinar po tayo.
Ayan. So, sana po'y makasama namin kayo or makasama ninyo kami sa inyong mga campaigns na ito. So, isang araw po, kukontakin namin kayong muli para nang sa ganon ay paunlakan ninyo kami dito sa Tinig Pinoy Radio Special Edition.
Naiintindihan ko po kayo tungkol dyan sa negosyo, Admin Hans, kasi katatapos ko lang ng Masters of Entrepreneurship. So, maraming salamat na hinahanda nyo talaga ang mga OFW natin bago nyo sila bigyan. So, napakamahalaga po yun. So, next time po, sana'y pag-usapan natin ulit at isama nyo po ang Tinig Pinoy sa mga plano nyo sa webinars at sa promotions po. Sasamahan namin kayo.
Okay. So, the microphone is yours, Admin Hans. Gusto po ninyo magparating ng ilang mga salita sa ating mga tagapakinig at tagapanood.
Yes, maraming salamat po, dear OFWs in Canada. Minsan lamang ako nakarating dyan sa inyong bansa and talagang na-appreciate, nakasama ko po, sinama po ako ni Sec Bello at na-appreciate po namin yung warmth ninyo and hospitality niyo, and same with this program. Maraming salamat sir and ma'am sa inyong pagpapaunlak. Hindi po ito trabaho para sa akin, kayo ang pahinga ko. Malaking bagay na nakakahalubilo ko kayo. Ito po ay pagkakataon kasi na mapalalim pa namin ang pagpapaglilingkod sa inyo. Kasi wala nang tatalo pa sa country-specific approach na tinatawag. Iba kasi yung pangkalahatan lang kami nagsasalita, pero maganda yung talagang nagzi-zero in kami on the specific situation and getting to meet and know the community. So please, palalimin pa natin, palawigin pa natin at buti tayo ngayon may video conferencing na. Isang positibong dulot ng pandemya ay napakaliit lang pala ng mundo. Every day pwede tayong magkita. That's right. Kaya't let's take advantage of this newfound platform. We can meet as much as we can. So sige po, we'll see each other again. Maraming salamat po. 1348 ang ating hotline. Meron tayong OWWA Quarantine Operations page. Merong OWWA mobile app downloadable for free at App Store and Google Play. Pwede mag-renew ng OWWA membership doon at mag-apply electronically to any of the OWWA programs. Dami ko na sinabi. Maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat din po. Thank you very much. Hanggang sa muli po, Admin Hans.
Take care.
Thank you.
Take care. Pagdasal natin isa't isa.
Salamat po.
That was amazing. Salamat, Admin. Wow! Iboboto ko siya, Kuya Dan.
I know. Like,
ang galing!
Napakarami ko narinig na magagandang salita tungkol kay Admin Hans. At ngayon, napatunayan nating totoo lahat yung mga balitang nakakarating sa atin.
Nakakataba ng puso, no? Ang galing talaga.
I know. Well, at this point, we are very happy. And in fact, he has been waiting at the backstage for almost 5 minutes now. And we'd like to invite on stage, on screen, our very good friend from the federal government, himself, a friend of Tinig Pinoy, a good friend at that. Let's all welcome MP Chandra Arya. Good afternoon. Good morning. Sorry.
Good morning. Good morning. Those are the traditional Indian way of hearing that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, MP Arya has been a very good friend to the Pinoy community, not just to Tinig Pinoy Radio. In fact, he is one of the supporters of the House bill that declared June as Philippine Heritage Month.
Thank you.
And in 2019, and I'm very proud to say this because I was part of this program, our very good friend MP Chandra Arya sponsored the holding of the very first Philippine Heritage Day on the Hill. You remember that, sir?
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. Due to this pandemic, we couldn't do that in the last year. This year is also is doubtful. But whenever it opens back again, let's do it back again on Parliament Hill. As you all know, as your all listeners and viewers know, that holding a Filipino Heritage Day on the Parliament Hill is done on behalf of all Canadians from coast to coast to coast.
Well, thanks again for initiating and sponsoring that, and always being available to Tinig Pinoy Radio and to our Pinoy community.
And Kuya Dan, if I
go
may
ahead.
just add,
course.
because this is also going to be broadcasted on CKCU 93.1 FM on Tuesday. Honorable Arya had been helping us during our funding drive. He had been donating. So thank you so much, Honorable Arya, for that. We truly appreciate that.
Yeah. So MP Arya is on the hot seat this morning. Hopefully it won't be so hot. Regina, would you like to start the ball rolling?
Yes, Honorable Arya, this is more so that you have a chance to tell the listeners and our viewers the point of view from your party, but also from the government. So I'd like to say that this week, on a call with other world leaders, Prime Minister Trudeau made a commitment to reduce Canada's greenhouse gas emissions by over 40% of 2005 levels by 2030. The previous commitment was a 30% reduction. The data shows that since Canada made the original commitment of a 30% reduction several years ago, our levels of GHG emissions have actually increased. There does not appear to be any rational analysis to support this new commitment. It looks like an impulsive decision without any regard to the impact on the cost to the average Canadian. We would like to know, how do you see it?
Okay, this is a great question. I'm so glad the first question is about the biggest challenge that is faced not by Canadians but all the people world across.
Right.
As you know that many of us Canadians, we come from so many different countries in the world, and the impact of this climate change is so severe there. If the developed nations do not take the first step, then it will be the effects of it is felt by a lot of developing nations across the world. We increase the target. We are still at the beginning part of the time. The tremendous things that is happening here, you will start seeing the result very soon. Let's go one by one. We put a price on carbon. However, we did not collect that money to the government on its own. We distributed back in Ontario. We distributed 90% of the amount to all families. In fact, many of your listeners may have submitted their tax return this month. They will see that, like last year, this year also they are getting a significant amount, whatever in their tax returns, that is coming back to them from the government due to the pricing on carbon pollution. Right now, pricing of carbon pollution is accepted even by those. Remember, during the last so many years, people used to attack us on this so-called carbon tax. Now, almost every single political party has accepted that this is the way forward. The impact of all this happening on the thing, we will start seeing sooner. Same time, we are also making significant investments in the sustainable technologies, in the clean technologies. And you may be aware that the biggest pollutant is the gasoline we used in driving cars. Do you know that today tremendous changes that are happening place across the world? People moving from this gasoline, ICE car, as you call internal combustion engine cars, to batteries. That uptake is still low in Canada and in the US. It is tremendous in Scandinavian countries, in Europe and in China, but that is coming to North America too. And when that comes in, you can see, because as you know, the US is the biggest market for the cars with several 100 million cars on the road today. And you can see when it starts changing from gasoline car to battery cars, how that is affected. We are also taking steps on planting 2 billion trees. As you know, that if you plant the tree today, the benefit of that will only you will start seeing few years down the road. So the cost of Canadians through the pricing of carbon is actually given back. The average family in Ontario is getting more than what they spend on this carbon pricing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a lot, and it's very clear on how you presented that,
Yeah.
MP Arya. I'm glad to hear this explanation. But let's go back to what is currently a concern of most of us in the world, not just in Canada. The cases of COVID are still spiraling. I mean, governments, the provincial governments are doing what they can to contain this disease that has killed a good number of Canadians. Now, there are continuous and alarming reports of travelers from countries with high incidence of COVID infections entering Canada through particularly the port of Vancouver. Why hasn't the government put a stop to this? To these incoming flights, preventing potential resurgence of cases in Canada?
Okay, good question. Obviously, coronavirus, this pandemic has affected every single country in the world. We too are affected. As you rightly pointed out, a lot of Canadians have died. Though the number of cases in Canada is low compared to many other countries, however, every single affected Canadian is important. Every single death due to this pandemic should be avoidable, is regrettable, no doubt about it.
Right.
And two things on that: air travelers bringing the new variants from different countries. First of all, let me start off saying that 2 days back we announced the total ban of flights from India and Pakistan. As you
Sorry.
know, that in India is the variance is at the highest.
Right.
Every single day, I think in India it's about 300,000 new
Mm.
cases every
Right.
single
Every
day.
day.
So the flights are totally banned. And
Mhm.
not only from India and Pakistan, suppose the people from India, if they want to come to Canada, say they go to Europe, then they travel to Canada. What we have done is that if you say go to London to catch a flight to come to Canada, you
Mhm.
have to get a negative report from London. So we have put
Mm.
two things. Number one, the
Yeah.
European airlines will not accept passengers in India without the test in India. So we have said that we have taken one other step. Not only you have to get tested there, you will also have to get tested from the place you take the flight that comes to Canada. So we have already taken measures. However, uh, the number of cases actually coming to Canada by flights, not just from India, China, Pakistan, Europe, South America, Africa, is very, very less. We have got a multi-stage thing to convert. Of course, every single new case coming should be avoidable. So I'm not saying that oh, just few cases are coming, it's okay. No, no, not acceptable. So even for the people coming from, say, South America, from Brazil or Caribbean or Europe, what we have done is that we have said you have to get tested before you board the flight. That is number one. Number two, as soon as you land, you have to get tested again. And till the test result come, you have to be in a particular hotel. Only when it is there, then you are allowed to go home. So we have got multi-layered process to protect Canadians from the new variants coming into Canada.
Hmm. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for the explanation. Regina, you and I were talking about your business being affected somehow by the pronouncement of the new US president. I'm talking about the Buy American policy that Biden has adopted. Would you like to ask that question now?
Yeah, well, this actually had been going on before the Buy America um, situation, Honorable Arya. And do you know if our government, is doing something or negotiating with the U.S. government on how they can help the Canadian businesses, as you know, there's so many Canadian businesses who are dealing business with the USA and vice versa. So US can do business with Canada easily, no ban on that one. But US, on the other hand, they are insisting the buy America. So what's our government position on that? And is there anything that the government is doing that perhaps is not in the media yet that you can tell us?
Okay, two things, Regina. Uh, this Buy America model has been around for a long time. Everybody says America can send, export whatever they want to Canada, but from Canada exporting to America, there is a bit of restrictions. That is a misconception. Let me clear that very clearly. America is our biggest trading partner. Canada is a trading nation. And as a trading nation, our biggest trading partner, over 70% of our trade is in the US. Right. Every single day, I think close to $2 to $3 billion trade takes place with US. The America First was always there in one form or the other. And the Biden administration has also brought that in. We are, of course, in contact with them, in discussion with them to make it as free as possible for the Canadian exporters like you and so many others to get access to that market. At the same time, the US has also got some problems with Canada. It is not that US can send everything to Canada. If you recall, when we discussed NAFTA, US wanted Canada to open our dairy sector. But we are protecting our dairy sector. We are protecting our chicken, eggs, dairy products, etc., from the onslaught of US exports to Canada. If we allow that to happen, the Canadian dairy and most of the farming thing will get closed in 2 months. So we too are protecting some of our industries from the onslaught of this big brother who can export a lot of things at a much cheaper cost. So same way US is also trying to protect some of its thing. It's not a big thing. However, every single small business person like you getting affected, it affects Canadians. So we are in constant touch with them, with the Biden team, though they have announced it again. Mostly the focus has been on the iron and steel products that are taken for the infrastructure, but they have gone slightly beyond that. That affects a lot of small businesses like you. We are continuing to be in touch with them. We have a great trade negotiating team at Global Affairs Canada. If you recall, this trade negotiating team, they did wonderful work as a Team Canada approach to get back NAFTA 2, as the Kusuma is, I guess, sometimes called NAFTA 2, back on rails. And that same efforts will continue to help Canadian small exporters to the US not get affected by this Buy America trade policy.
Okay, so Buy America is just back because it was before also a policy of the Democrats. It was pushed away by the past administration.
Every single administration, right from Bush administration onwards, there was always one or the other form of this. Okay.
Right. I mean, our friend, the Premier Jason Kenney, will be angry at me if I didn't ask this question. U.S. President Biden, in one of his first acts as president, signed and canceled the Keystone XL pipeline and revoked its permit without even the courtesy of discussing this with Canada, supposed to be America's longest standing ally. This means jobs and economy for Western Canada lost. Would you like to share your views on this?
Sure. As you said, US is also a democratic country like Canada. Okay. Like in Canada, when we come to political parties, we come with a particular platform. And the people like that platform, electors, it is our duty to implement that platform. Same in the US. Biden administration had a platform going in for election. As you know, that the Trump was a supporter of Keystone XL, and Biden clearly told Americans if he gets elected, he is going to cancel it. So it in the democratic rights of the US to take actions based on which their political leaders are elected. That is the first thing. Number two, you have to understand the tremendous changes that are taking place across the world with respect to oil. The oil consumption has actually gone down, and it will continue to go down in the near future. And the biggest oil companies in the world, Exxon, Chevron, they're all US based. If you look at that, they're closing investments into new oil fields. They have already closed the investments in Canadian oil fields quite some time back. That many people may not appreciate. The biggest investor for Canadian oil sands were coming from the US oil companies. They have said no more investments in Canadian oil sands. It is not just because Keystone Council was there, the investments were withdrawn, so we lost the jobs. The decision was already made earlier. In fact, recently I even saw a report. Remember, our government, we stepped in to save the pipeline, the Trans Mountain pipeline that was going to the Vancouver for exports to Asia and Pacific countries. That was almost closing down, but we stepped up. We invested $17 billion to buy that pipeline to save it from getting closed. Now there are reports that pipeline may not be fully utilized according to the project. I don't know that for fact yet. I just read the report, just read the headline, I have not gone in detail. Even the pipeline that is under construction, expanding the capacity to take the oil sands, crude oil to Pacific for export, even I'm seeing reports that it may not be utilized to its fullest extent. So there's a writing on the wall. The oil industry knows it. Oil industry people, they're aware of the things that are happening, not only just to climate change, how the gasoline cars, they're moving to electric cars. They're aware and they're already working on mitigation measures.
That's why we have and appreciate sessions such as this with people who know. Thank you for the explanations,
You're
MP
welcome.
Arya. Regina, you have another question.
Yes, let's touch on the newly minted federal budget, please, Honorable Arya. Some quarters are saying that this 2021 federal budget will be the backbone of the Liberal election. But is it, given claims by critics that this budget simply adds up to the deficit spending and yet offers little to address real problems experienced by Canadians? Could you please tell us about your point of view on that?
Absolutely. This is one of the greatest budget in Canadian history. First, let me address the just 2 or 3 major points and then go specifically the question you mentioned there. Obviously, we have got a biggest program, the child care program. As you know, that the women are the most affected due to the high cost of child care. That is preventing lot of qualified women, professionally qualified women, than entering into workforce for good paying jobs and contributing to the economic development of the country as well for their own families. So we are introducing the child care program to bring the cost immediately by next year by 50%. You know, the average cost of childcare in Ottawa, I think, is around 1,300, if I'm not wrong. Compared to just across the river in Gatineau, it is $181 average cost. You can imagine we are making more than $1,000 difference in the cost of an average Ottawa family for one child. And we want to bring it on par with the Quebec that costs just $10 a day. Just imagine a family saving close to $1,200 per child. See the amount of benefit the family gets, the amount the family can enjoy when the women, when the mothers come back to the workforce, and the contribution these women can make to the economic development of Canada. So that is the flagship thing. Now, coming to the deficit, if anybody has read the budget carefully, they would realize that though this is a very big budget, this is the biggest budget.
Biggest.
By 2025, I'm talking of 4 years. By 2025, the federal government spending will be just 14.9% of the economy. I have to give a comparison. People may not understand whether 14.9% federal spending is high, low, or medium.
Mhm.
Compare that, the pre-pandemic spending of the federal government was 14.5%. See, pre-pandemic, the government spending, which all of you agree was not very huge, was 14.5%. And once these programs are fully implemented, by 2025, the entire federal government spending will just rise from 14.5% to 14.9%. That is one. The second is the debt that is created due to this deficit. When we see debt, we always have to compare with the GDP, like the mortgage. How much mortgage you have? If I say you have got 500,000 mortgage, it doesn't mean anything till you also tell me what is the value of the house.
Mhm.
If your value of the house is $1 million, then your $500,000 mortgage is not a big deal. If the value of your house is only $600,000, your $500,000 mortgage is very, very high. And Canada has always been very prudent in the amount of debt Canada federal government borrows. You know, the federal government debt to GDP ratio in 3 years, 25, 26, will fall to 49.2%. As I said, if you go to the analogy of a mortgage, it is about $490,000 if the value of the economy is $1 million. So, and this, my friends, is the best amongst all the developed countries, amongst the G7 countries. Canada has got the lowest debt to GDP ratio today, and it will continue to have the lowest debt to GDP even in 2025. So we continue to be a very prudent borrower of debt. Number three, the deficit, Regina, you mentioned. The deficit today, I think, is around, it was 15%, it was 6 or 7%. In 3 years, the deficit is going to fall to just 1.1% of the GDP. Again, one of the best across the world. And the third thing I have to mention is, this is for somebody who appreciates the borrowings. You know, when federal government borrows, we have to borrow through bonds, right? When we as the household income borrow, either we borrow from credit card or line of credit or the mortgage. Credit card is the most high cost debt. Next high cost is the line of credit. The cheapest borrowing is the mortgage.
Mortgage.
The same way, Canada, today we have got the lowest interest long-term rates ever seen. So what Canadian government has already started doing for the last 2 years, out of the total borrowings, we were borrowing the long-term bonds of 10-year bonds. I think 15% of the total borrowings was long-term bonds. We already increased the long-term borrowings to 29%, and we propose to take it up to 42% of the total borrowings, so that we can capture this very low interest rate for a long time and use this money to invest in Canadians today.
Yeah.
Sorry, it
Well,
may be a slightly long thing, but I thought you guys should know.
I will agree with you on at least two of those points.
Yeah.
One is the very low mortgage rate, which actually attracts a lot of home buyers now. Unfortunately, the cost of houses now has also gone sky high. And I have always been envious of the childcare cost in Quebec when I had my kids, being taken care of. And I'm happy that your government is now doing something to save the Canadian parents a lot of money in
Can
taking care of their kids.
Can I address the
Of
cost
course,
of
yeah.
houses? Obviously, it has gone beyond many Canadians. We have only one son, is 29. He wanted to buy his first home. It is so expensive. I understand. However, to mitigate that, the governments of all levels, the real estate prices, most of it is managed by the province, by the issues that are to be managed is at the provincial level and at the city level. At the federal government level, the interest rate is fixed by Bank of Canada, not by Government of Canada. That many people think that the government can fix the interest rate. No, it's the Bank of Canada, which is independent,
Right.
absolutely independent, that fix the interest rates. However, as a federal government, we have taken two ways to control the house cost. One, for the first time home buyers, like our son or maybe your children,
Yeah.
we have brought in the first time home buyer credit,
Right.
where the government gives 10% interest free that they can use to buy their homes as a part of their equity. That's number one. Number two, we have proposed, one of the reasons why a lot of real estate thing is going up is the foreign buyers coming in and buying properties just for investment sake, not renting them out, etc.
Yeah.
So we are imposing a tax on
Right.
those foreign ownership in Canadian properties which are vacant. However, the best way to solve the high cost of homes is for the cities and the province to make regulations that allow for the more supply of new homes. Yeah.
Thank you. Wow, that's quite a mouthful.
Yeah.
There's so much to chew,
Yeah.
and I'm happy that we have asked these questions and that the Honorable MP Chandra Arya provided all the answers that our listeners would like to hear. Unfortunately, time is not a friend today. There are so many questions we'd like to ask and be elucidated on. Unfortunately, it's almost time for us to say our goodbyes. Regina?
Thank you po. And Honorable Arya, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to meet us and to explain to us what's happening on the biggest issues that we face here in Canada.
Thank you so much for inviting me as a part of your program. As you know that I am always available if you guys want to organize a town hall meeting of the Filipino Canadians in Ottawa or across Canada virtually too. I'm always available. Please don't hesitate to ask me any questions. I may not have the exact correct answer, but I'll try to honestly try to address it. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for your time, and we certainly look forward to having you again in our program one of these days in the future. And may you have a wonderful weekend ahead.
Thank you so much. In fact, I'm going for my vaccination now.
Good luck to that, sir.
Honorable Arya.
I've had mine.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Have a nice day.
Yes.
And Regina, that was a lot to take, huh?
We did not even finish the questions you prepared, Kuya
I
Dan.
know, and I only have a very few questions prepared, and I didn't even get to ask them. But the Honorable MP Arya has been generous enough to provide us as much information he can give us and our listeners
I
to
respect
better
you for
understand
that.
what is happening around us. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. But time is upon us, and we have to say our goodbyes. Regina, the mic is yours.
Salamat po, Kuya Dan, for having me tonight at mga katinig. Until the next time, salamat po.
Our apologies doon po sa mga nag-comment ni hindi na namin nabigyan ng pagkakataong basahin at i-acknowledge ang inyong mga comments. Nakikita ko po rito, sangkaterba yung mga comments. So again, our apologies. But with that, we're asking for your patience and understanding because we had two very important guests, not only because of their stature, but because of the issues that we wanted to bring about and have explanations on. At hopefully, sa nakaraang isang oras po ay nabigyan natin ng liwanag yung mga katanungan nasa mga isip natin na makatutulong sa ating pang-araw-araw na kabuhayan. Doon po sa mga nakinig at nanood ngayon, maraming salamat. Please like and share this program today. Huwag po niyo kalimutan, bukas kasama niyo uli si Kuya Dan and most likely and hopefully Regina Sosing sa Talakbayan sa Tinig Pinoy. Kasama din po natin ang ating bagong co-host na si Dina O'Brien. So, makita-kita po tayong muli. Again, Regina, thank you very much. You're a godsend. Bye-bye.